given that we're currently dying faster than usual due to heat, I figured now would be a great time to do fire bosses. Why it took me so long, I don't really know. Anyways, the usual rules apply. How good is the boss? How well do they use fire? Yada, yada, yada. Also, lava doesn't count. That could easily be its own list. It really says something that a lot of the bosses on this list ranked really high or even topped other countdowns that I've made. There are gonna be so many fire puns in this, aren't there?
Hey, you knew the risks when you signed up for this job, buddy.
Well, at least with fire done, we can finally move on from the elemental boss countdowns.
But what about light, darkness, metal, gravity, sun, moon, nuclear, psychic, electromagnetism, time, non-metal, and surprise? Oh, and all the elements in the Tom Lehrer song. You know, the holmium and helium, hafnium and erbium, phosphorus and francium and fluorium and terbium.
This is the song that never ends!
Who's afraid of a little thunder?
Remember Colonel Volgen, the main antagonist from Metal Gear Solid 3 who schemed to take over the Soviet Union and kill Big Boss? If so, then you may recall how he kinda died, struck by lightning, and burned alive. So, I know the story, right? Well...
Were you killed? Sadly, yes. But I lived.
So it turns out he was just in a coma, and 19 years later in Metal Gear Solid 5, he was awakened from his slumber by Psycho Mantis and was reborn as the literal Man on Fire. Now gifted with power over the burning element, he can teleport, manipulate flame itself, and he can even summon a flaming horse.
Do not sully the metalness of this moment. Do not!
He actually has 2 boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 5. Yeah, okay. Admittedly, the first one isn't so much a fight as it is a boss chase, since the entire encounter is an on-rail sequence leading to a horseback run. Still, major props. Watching him burn down the woods while he's on the hunt is pretty nerve-wracking, and you actually feel a tinge of fear at the thought of him catching you. In the second encounter, however, there is no horse. He's coming for you and he'll scorch you alive with his bare hands.
Don't you worry, you just stay calm and run! Run for your life!
I'm not even joking with that. You're going to have to book it because this guy is a tank. Along with everything I mentioned above, shooting him is pointless because he's unbelievably durable. Your only true strategy is to keep running, avoid his wildfire, and incapacitate him. Preferably with water. Once he's down, radio for an evac before he gets back up, and you're home free. Whew, that was kinda underwhelming. Don't get me wrong, aesthetically it's a phenomenal fight and really tense, but arguably its biggest issue is that the whole boss sequence is scripted and your options to fight him are limited. It honestly has more in common with a horror boss than what you typically see from the franchise, but depending on what you're looking for, that just might be your cup of tea.
I'm through running. This time I do what's right. You need to know the truth.
I don't like Dark Souls. Right, everyone's still recovering from Sonic Month.
With that said, I can at least still appreciate the work that goes into making these bosses so challenging, for the most part. With the franchise spanning 3 games, there were a lot of bosses to choose from, especially when it comes to fire. I mean, pyromancy is a magic school, it'd be weird if there weren't any. And what would be a better fire boss than the final boss of the series, the Soul of Cinder? For context, the Soul of Cinder is the amalgamation of all the previous Lords of Cinder, those who have linked the First Flame and prolonged the Age of Fire. These include both Gwyn and the Chosen Undead, the final boss and player character of the first game. As such, the Lord of Cinder can switch between several different fighting stances. Heck, he can even parry you.
Huh? Now you know how it feels.
And since this is a final boss, it naturally has a second form. In this form, it fights like a beefed up version of Gwyn, complete with some absolutely insane fire sword combos. Despite the gravitas and spectacle, however, Soul of Cinder is this low due to the fact that it doesn't really do anything super creative or new with the fire element compared to previous versions. In fact, a lot of its moves are of other elements, and that's a pretty big factor when it comes to this list.
Seriously, how do people play these games? Let alone enjoy them?
'Cause only when we suffer can we be great.
So, this is like the 3rd or so time I'm talking about Asgore. This way, everyone in Undertale's getting a Flowey sticker.
Let's be honest, Asgore deserves it. He's one of the most under-talked characters in the game, which is weird since I'd expect the guy who literally shatters the mercy button to draw a lot more attention from the community. I really wish more people gave him credit for how compelling he really is, but I'm getting sidetracked. We're looking at his role as a fire boss here, and while it's not super focused on, I say he's still nailed it thematically. He mainly attacks by drawing fireballs towards you in various patterns. Big rings of fire, flame swipes, firestorms, great balls of fire, and the like. You can tell that these attacks are strikingly similar to the ones Toriel used, but are more advanced. On top of a subtle connection in combat, it's symbolic of how Toriel only uses her magic to deter you, while Asgore is out to put you down no matter what. The somber melodies of Bergentrocken add all the more to the reminiscent tension of the fight. It's a super emotional confrontation and one of the best moments in Undertale as a whole. Unfortunately, I can't rank it any higher since the fire motif isn't as strong as the other entries on this list. Still, it's nice to appreciate the subtle details about this fight all the more. And given how much Omega Flowey and Sans we've had to put up with these past few years, subtlety is definitely appreciated. Earlier this year, Kirby took his first floating steps out of the normal comfort zone and into the foray of 3D platformers with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And honestly, he knocks it out of the park. A very fun, near seamless jump to 3D. It carries all of the parts of Kirby we love, including the Eldritch Horror at the end. Plus, Kirby Car. Just Kirby Car! But of course, what's a fresh new adventure without obstacles in your path? Which leads us to our 7th fire hazard, Morphonite. Bit of a backstory for this reborn butterfly. Morphonite first appeared in Kirby's Star Allies for 2 boss fights. Once in his normal form, and once again in his more upgraded EX mode. But back then he didn't have anything fire related. But that soon changed. He comes back at the end of Forgotten Land's post-game after absorbing Soul Forgo, and this time, he's literally packing heat. He'll launch flaming slices and even walls and cyclones of fire at you, on top of being able to teleport, being swing happy with his blade, and create a disorienting energy field with his wings. He's also incredibly fast, so landing an attack on him may take a miracle, and avoiding his blows is going to be just as fun. Aesthetically, Morphonite looks like an amazing fire boss, and his burning attacks really pack a punch. But honestly, the reason he's on the lower end of the list is that the whole fire aspect isn't really a core component of his fighting prowess. Sure, he's got fire-based attacks, but overall, his main gimmick just seems to be a freaky butterfly knight with a sword. But as I said, he definitely looks the part, and it fits with him on a symbolic level. See, fire symbolizes the giving and taking of lives, which works perfectly with Morpho's lore. In Japan, butterflies are treated as a symbol of death. Coincidentally, he arrives upon something's death to offer judgment on their fate. Heck, as I mentioned earlier, the only reason he's able to take part in this fight is that he stole Soul Forgo's life essence. Plus, the way he moves and attacks are wild and erratic, almost like a wildfire if you catch me cold.
A wildfire destroys everything in its path.
So yeah, while Morpho could have gone a little bit farther with the fire stuff, he's still an excellent symbol of what fire stands for. So I'd say that earns him a gold star. Man, Pokemon's been on a roller coaster recently, hadn't it? We may have Gen 9 on the horizon and a lot to expect from that, but can we just talk about how spectacular Arceus was? I'm so glad it was as good as it looked. One of the things I'm happy Arceus introduced was the more action-oriented boss fights against the Frenzied Lords. These Pokemon were giant and powerful versions of unique variants or Pokemon not seen in the series before. To beat them, you need to throw bombs or their favorite food to calm them down while avoiding their attacks. And if you think this is an easy task, well, it is at the beginning. Then it isn't. Yeah, even some action game vets like me were caught off guard with some of the later ones. So, all that background out of the way, let's talk about Frenzied Hisuian Arcanine. Out of all of the lords, this one has some more interesting lore to it. So the previous lord was killed trying to save his pup from being swallowed by the tide. Thanks to this, the young prince obtained anxiety about his role and found it difficult to cope. blaming himself. When his partner was kidnapped by the Fortune Sisters, though, he leaped into the sea and swam to the nearby island in order to save him. The courage the young prince obtained from this challenge gave him the power to evolve into the Lord of the Isles, Arcanine! Too bad the space-time rift comes in and strikes him with the Frenzy virus, leading to the newly evolved Lord going berserk. That's a big reason why this fight is so good. The underlying tragedy of it all. Anxiety over duty, finally working up the courage to accept responsibility, and your reward is having your mind stolen from you. Yeesh. Anyway, boss fight time! Arcanine's main attack is to dash across the arena at you, so you need to be prepared to dodge when necessary. You will also jump and land in the middle, causing a fire shockwave, so make sure you're towards the side. Sometimes he'll charge up an explosion when you see 5 fireballs above his head. You need to launch bombs at in order to get rid of the fireballs and prevent the explosion. Doing this will make him vulnerable to attack with one of your Pokemon. And halfway through the fight, a firewall will stay in the middle of the arena, meaning you will need to be more careful where you dodge and aim higher if he tries to use the explosion. Keep it up and you got it. I know you're probably expecting a legendary Pokemon like Ho-Oh or a popular fire-type gym leader like Kabu, but nothing beats the actual thrill of confronting a giant Pokemon as it tries to burn you alive. Arcanine may not have as many fancy fire techniques as later members, but the scale and impact of the fight is what puts it here.
Alright, time to go hunt a mass outbreak to see if I can find a shiny Clefairy. For the 8th time today.
Mega Man and fire bosses, an estranged combo that tends to end in absolute disaster. Burn! Though, to be fair, the series can do great fire bosses. It's just that the bad ones tend to be the norm. It's the inverse of the water temple. And one major exception to this rule is Magma Dragoon, one of the best bosses in the X series. To start with, Dragoon has a bit more story relevance than most Mavericks. He's the one responsible for blasting down Sky Lagoon, killing innocent civilians, and pinning the blame on Repliforce. All of this just so he can get hunted down by X and Zero and goad them into fighting him to the death.
Now you and I will battle to the death.
Bit extreme, but hey, at least we got a great fight out of it. As a fire maverick, he of course specializes in blasting flamethrowers and meteors at you, all the while adding his own interesting flair to it.
Hadouken! Shoryuken!
Yep, this guy's a good old-fashioned Street Fighter Shoto, complete with Goki beads and everything. It ain't subtle at all, but at least you can tell the devs really enjoyed putting this boss together. It really helps that the fight itself is pretty challenging, since Dragoon's attacks come in pretty quick, and you gotta foresee every chance he'd throw in a blazing kick or a flame breath. After you beat him, he got a chance to say a few last words, hinting at a mysterious person who led him to this path. Gee, I wonder if I know him. Magma Dragoon's a solid boss in general. Great design, creative fire attacks, and the volcanic environment fits the scenario to a T. Let's hope future fire bosses take more from this fight and less from the other ones. Burn! Of course, we can't have a fire boss list without the fire-breathing king of the Koopas himself. Bowser's had a lot of battles across the series featuring his flame-throwing prowess, some more iconic and prevalent than others. But the age-old question is, which fight best represents his capabilities as a fire boss? Where can we see him push his pyrotechnics to its finest? Well, to answer that question, we're gonna look into the peculiar little spin-off, Bowser's Fury. In this additional campaign, Bowser took Junior to Lake Lapcat for a vacation. On their way, Junior pulled a prank on him by painting his face with a mysterious ink. This angered Bowser to a concerning degree. In fact, he got so mad that he transformed into a devastating force of nature, polluting Lake Lapcat with the black goop that tainted him. Amidst the chaos, he emerges as the colossal kaiju known as Fury Bowser. Oh, wait! If that's not the most menacing Bowser's looked since Giga Bowser, then I don't know what is! Throughout the campaign, Bowser repeatedly haunts you with his gigantic presence, jumping out from the lake and shooting salvos of fire attacks, covering the entire island with some hot-foot hazards. Collecting the cat shrines scattered across the lake will not only subside him for a while, but it'll also chip away at his health, bit by bit. Of course, this won't work forever. Eventually, his rage will be so out of control that the only way you can really quell him is by facing him head-on using the Giga Bell, which turns Mario into a giant Super Saiyan furry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, checks out. From there, it's a one-on-one kaiju showdown as you pounce Bowser with a super-sized cat Mario while he fires spikes and fireballs. The fight itself is fun, albeit short, but you do have to face him about 3 times before you get to finally tear all the goop out of him and reach that final phase. While still in a trance, Bowser cages the Gigabells and continues his furious rampage across the lake. This is where you hitch a ride on Plessy and zoom your way across the waters to smack Bowser some more and finish him off for good. He, of course, doesn't make it easy for you as he blasts scorching lasers and rings of flame to impede your path, and is nowhere short of scalding spikes to launch at you. Wait. You're fighting a giant boss atop a body of water, turning super with golden spiky hair, and the boss fires lasers at you as you dash towards it to deal damage.
I cannot believe we've reached a point in time where Nintendo is copying Sega.
Jokes aside, this is a really intense fight, and it really highlights one of Bowser's best outings as a devastating fire-breathing beast. I do think they could have gone a little more all out with the fire motif, like maybe have some of the spike platforms be on fire, or have Bowser throw flaming punches, or maybe have some of the goop be set on fire and whatnot. Probably would have been higher on the list then. Still, considering how Bowser fights nowadays are rarely that challenging anymore, it's nice to have one that really keeps you on your toes while still being the flaming terror we know and love the Koopa King for. Just a little side note here, I make it no secret how disappointed I am with Blizzard. How they continuously shoot themselves in the foot in the worst ways, and it seems like they got plenty of bullets left. So let's take a look back to WoW's golden years, where they created some killer bosses, including our next entry, Kalethos Sunrider. Already he's made a splash on previous countdowns like Pyrokinetics and Longest bosses, and he's definitely earned his spots on those lists. You know what they say, 3rd time's the charm, so here he is again. First, how about a brief recap of Kalethos' backstory? Once the Prince of the High Elves turned Lord of the Blood Elves, he hoped to one day cure his people of their crippling addiction to mana. But he made friends with the wrong people, and also fell for a minor while he's over 100, but we'd rather not look into that, so shh! And ended up becoming the embittered Sun King, plagued by his own addiction and ambition to ensure his race's survival, and well equipped with pyromancy and arcane magic. Throw on the voice of Quentin
Burn, baby!
Flynn, and you've got an elf after my own heart. To coincide with his sudden villainous streak, he wasn't originally a boss when he first appeared in the Frozen Throne. But then Burning Crusade comes in, drops this tragic bombshell, and lo and behold, Kalethos as a boss. Arguably one of the longest bosses in the game. You don't even get to fight him in his own battle until phase 4. But when he does come out to play, well, for the sake of whatever's left of my sanity, I'll let this guy make the pun.
You play with fire, you're gonna get burned!
Ugh. Anyway, along with arcane magic, mind-controlling abilities, and defying the laws of gravity, Kalethos is a master at all things fire. His most recurring attack is the Fireball, which can reach up to 40 range and deal heavy damage. He can also call down a pillar of fire to add a little extra burning goodness on his enemies where they stand, and even dish out the Pyroblast, which deals a whopping 50,000 damage. And the real icing on the cake, he can send out a Phoenix that pulses fire damage and hurts both its enemies and itself. Phoenixes don't mess around. Now we can see why it takes so long for Kalethos to actually get in the fight, because he wants to make his grand debut after his fall from grace all the more worth it. And considering how many times he can cook you, I'd say he succeeds. If you aren't fast enough to deal damage or interrupt his attacks, well, I hope you don't mind that the only thing left you can order is the extra crispy. Thankfully, once you power on through, you could get a chance to earn his Verdant Sphere, which not only looks cool, but allows you to embark on a side quest, which is mostly just an excuse to get more class-related goodies. Yeah, beggars can't be choosers.
Jet fuel may not melt steel beams, but Elder Dragons do!
Hey, Fatalis! Man, you were a trip and a half, huh? Fatalis is to Monster Hunter as Ganondorf is to Zelda or Dracula is to Castlevania. It's the legendary big bad that's been there since the beginning, and whenever he comes back, you know it's gonna be loud and epic. I talked about Fatalis' lore during my top 10 DLC bosses list and how it's pretty much the end-all of Monster Hunter bosses. It's one of the legendary black dragons that are in a completely different class from the already calamity-creating Elder Dragons. Sure, we could wax poetic about the world version again, like how its flames literally melted a giant steel door. Yeah, not even a flame shield will protect you from this dragon's embers. Its flame breath and attacks make other Master Fire users like Teostra and Lunastra look like candlesticks. attacks. He's got flame cones, flame explosions, giant fireballs, homing fireballs, spinning flamethrowers. If you can think of a way he can kill you with fire, he will. And if you didn't whack the head enough to break it, you'll be melting even faster than that steel door once the third phase comes around because his flames get even stronger. Oh heavens.
Oh Lord, I think I'm coming down with a case of the vapors.
While this version of the fight in and of itself would make this spot, I do want to mention a specific variant of the dragon that you fight a few times in addition to the base black dragon. Yeah, if you thought base Fatalis was scary, you have no idea what true fear really is. Say hello to the raging Crimson Fatalis. Take normal Fatalis and then its rage for humanity goes so out of control, it fuels the flames to the point where its entire body becomes red in anger and power. The most recent fight against this rageaholic is in Generations Ultimate. Not only does it have all of the normal flame attacks the World Fatalis uses, it can also summon meteors from the sky, lava geysers from below, and you fight it in an active volcano. Hope you have the cold drinks ready. Heck, if you were unlucky enough to fight this monster in the Frontier MMO, you'd have to deal with the unique Crimson Demon element, which combines dragon and fire into a super powerful new element that will really make you regret skinning those random Jagras that Fatalis just so happens to see you do. Both these fights really show why Fatalis is the Monster Hunter King of Fire. If I had to choose between which fight was better, it would be the world fight. But not mentioning Crimson on a list of fire bosses would be a sin in and of itself. One that Fatalis would try to kill me for. Then I'd kill it, then wear its armor, and then wait as it slowly takes over my body and soul until I disappear from existence, only to become a Fatalis myself.
Right, forgot Fatalis lore makes curvy lore look pleasant.
Rubicante from Final Fantasy IV. Oh hey, it's the Altark of Flame guy. Wonder what he's doing nowadays. Cert, Hellblade Senua sacrifice. The titular Hoenn is already suffering from a long list of mental issues. Adding someone else's pyrophobic-induced boogeyman probably isn't helping much. Arvis from Fire Emblem 4. The hipster Flame Emperor, complete with trusting an evil cult as part of the questionable package. Flannery, Pokemon Generation 3. She carries the swagger of a first-time D&D DM who has no idea what they're doing but wants people to have a good time. Totally can't relate. Volvagia, Ocarina of Time. One part Fire Dragon, the other part Legendary Whack-A-Mole, all parts Bad Hair Day. Don't read the manga unless you want your heart ripped to shreds. Forgo DDD, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Character DD development flavored in fire. Grim, Hollow Knight. I didn't know Volcarona started a circus cult. Kasha, Nioh 2. You know what this reenactment of Japanese history needs? A giant sexy cat girl on rollerblades. Demon of Hatred, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. He's an optional boss, sure, but he's a big boy who can stomp you flat and cook you to a crisp.
Alright, number one is... No. No. Come on! There has to be someone else! I can't be this obvious!
Do it.
No.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No! I'm such a shill and a hack!
Good. Let the discourse flow through you.
I am such a simp for Axel! No, not that kind of simp.
Come here, I'll make it all stop. Burn, baby!
Come on, from his introduction alone, Axel has been one of the most popular characters in Kingdom Hearts. Many people consider him to be the best member of Organization 13. Some consider him to be the most overrated. I am of the former category. I've sung his praises endlessly across many lists, so let's talk about his boss battle. But which one will make the list? Once again, I'm gonna have to go with the battle from 2. The one in Chain of Memories is fine, it's just that Chain of Memories. It's hard not to cheese everything to death. Like every other member of Organization 13, Axel has a significantly harder optional data battle. For those that don't know, each data battle changes the boss up in addition to making them stronger. What additions does Axel get? Well, the whole fire field thing goes from a mild annoyance to a straight up doom counter. Of course, the best way to deal with Axel is ice. Those were very awkward times before the water element. Equipping the Blizzard Boost ability will help, but the only Keyblade that has that is the Mysterious Abyss. And how do you get that? By beating Ursula's Revenge, of course.
So, yes, in a very roundabout way, there is a reason to beat Atlantica other than to get 100%. Now the question becomes, is it worth it?
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
If I had to really nitpick, there is a small problem with this fight, and it's a problem with a lot of other fights in 2. Reflect. Just by standing there and timing it correctly, it's possible to utterly destroy him. Thus, the whole thing goes from a fast-paced firefight to an Uno reverse card simulator. But, you know, it doesn't ruin the fight. Unlike some other bosses in the series where you're practically required to exploit the game in order to win, Axel can be beaten without cheese strats, just straight good timing and strategy. And because of that, I can safely say that he, once again, earned his #1 spot.
I'm joshscorcher, and tune in next time where we look at the, Dragon bosses?
Cut!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.